There we go. Looks like we don't have anybody on just yet. Good, that gives me a second. Okay, cool. So we should all be right here now. I'll wait for you guys to get on and I'll take my notes. All right. It is Tuesday, right? Yep. I mean, I know I posted things kind of late, but dang, guys. Careful, my dude. Did you check on your brother? Did you check his butt? Do the thing, my dude. Of course, I also know that there were all kinds of weird internet problems earlier today as well. Or maybe 8 weeks is just too damn long. Whatever the case. I promised you guys certain topics. And even if you have not logged in, you can always get caught up a little bit later. Again, this is Dawn, and this is the Well Healed program on Alchemy's Healing Arts. We have talked about a ton of topics up to this point, and really most of the big stuff culminated last week in the forgiveness class. But just to go over everything again, and in all fairness, if we end up doing capstone today and everybody has their stuff and this is just QA and finish up, then we're just not even going to have class next week, and I'm fine with that. It's just one of those things where, you know, there's only so much that we can talk about in general terms. Yeah, we'll go from there. Let me see. So we had a request, and everybody agreed that they wanted to hear, a discussion about dream symbolism, dreams, things like that. And I also wanted to discuss some topics relating to relationships, positive relationships, not positive relationships, how to tell the difference between the two a little bit. Probably one of the biggest things that I generally have to help people through when we're doing one-on-one sessions. Not the biggest, second biggest would be relationship issues. Having been in abusive relationships, having been in toxic relationships, and that's not just toxic relationships like romantic, but also with parents and family members. So we want to talk about a little bit of that. I also wanted to talk about grief, because we did discuss last week about how grief and forgiveness are very, very closely related, and they're very much close to being the same thing. Can you guys hear me, by the way? Please let me know. And then I did want to get into some divination, because it's something that almost everybody, yay, it's something that almost everybody has questions about at some point or another, when and how to use divination. Gotta keep my notes, And, all right, so let's jump straight into the dream portion, okay? So, not everybody remembers their dreams. And there is a very simple way to remember your dreams. It does take devotion, it does take regular practice, but you simply tell yourself before you're going to bed, before you're going to sleep, I totally remember my dreams. I remember my dreams. You can even say things like, I remember important dreams, okay? And you can use EFT for that. You know what, let me go ahead and roll back and recap again. 1, first session, 5 principles. Just for today, I will anger not. Just for today, I will worry not. Just for today, I will be grateful. Just for today, I will do my work honestly. Just for today, I will treat myself and all living things with compassion and respect. That's an important thing for us to start with, because as we start talking about things like, especially getting into grief and relationships and toxic relationships and things like that, I think it's really important to keep in mind that every single guiding principle that we have is going to be based on that, every single goal that we have is going to be based on the guiding principles of the 5 principles of Reiki. Then everybody who wanted one got their Reiki attunement. If you want to do a really fun experiment for me, if you're seeing this later on, go back and watch session 2, and tell me if you get the woo woo whoosh from the Reiki attunements, which is kind of cool. Let's see. Then we talked about mindful linguistics, right? We talked about how to police our thoughts, how to be careful with our words, how to phrase things properly so that we can get to the meat of our core issues and express ourselves well. And also not sabotage ourselves as we're sitting here trying to come up with, the more positive mind frames. And we talked about muscle testing and different ways to keep ourselves accountable, okay, and that's that little thing right here. And then EFT, which I did a little coaching session on earlier today, but I'm going to go over it one more time. When you're doing EFT, if it's an in-the-moment thing, okay, hang on to your emotion, focus on it very, very aggressively, okay? And you're going to design your statement. Even though I feel this way about this event, I love and accept myself totally. This is our standard go-to because we are going to take this negative feeling and we're going to replace it with the most pure form of love there is, and that is self-love, okay? So we make our statement, even though I feel this way about this event, or even though I just feel this way. I use this a lot in traffic, by the way. Getting much better with the road rage, which is unfortunate for the kids because now they're not learning nearly as many fun cuss words. Even though, and we're rubbing 3 times, or we're rubbing while we say it 3 times, even though I feel this way, I love and accept myself totally, even though I feel this way. And a good way to find it is if you put your, the row of your hands right here on your sternum, and put your hands down flat, and then press with your fingers. Right there is just about exactly the place that you should be rubbing to activate this transition. Okay? So even though I feel this way about this thing, I love and accept myself totally. Even though I feel this way about this thing, I love and accept myself totally. Even though I feel this way about this thing, I love and accept myself totally. Now we're going to focus only on the negative emotion for a moment. And we're going to tap right here, the very, very top of the head. Oh man, that feeling, can you believe it? Now again, not here in the middle, right here the inside of the eyebrow, right here. Oh man, that feeling sucks, man. Right here, you feel the orbital, negative feeling. Right here, directly down from the pupil as you look forward, right here, and you can feel it right on the edge of that bone. That negative feeling. We're focusing on that negative. Oh man, I can't believe that feeling is so negative. Oh my gosh. Clavicle. This is your collarbone. The point. Go down and in. 1 inch, 1 inch. This, oh man, negative feeling, negative feeling. From your nipple, directly under your arm, so your axilla point, and then down, nipple down to the front of your ribs, this negative feeling, and then we're finishing up. There's actually a few points here, so you want to hit with all 4 of your fingers right here, okay? Then, your last 2 metatarsals, okay? Pinky and ring finger right between them. Just about 3/4 to 1 inch down, depending on how big you are. Okay? That's your gamut point. You are going to tap here while you're doing your EMDR and you're doing your mind thing. So the EMDR is at about a 45-degree angle. Down to one side, down to one side, all the way around, all the way around, okay? You're not moving your head, you're only moving your eyes, okay? Because it's eye movement desensitizing reprogramming, EMDR, okay? Hum a song in your head. I'm a Yankee Doodle Dandy. Count to 5 in your head. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hum a song in your head. I'm a Yankee Doodle Dandy. Big deep breath. And then reassess and see how strong your feeling is. Now, we always want to try to start when we are having that moment. I realize that I almost compulsively assess my emotions all the time on a scale of 1 to 10. How strong is this feeling? So that I can kind of say, you know, is it passing? Is it moving forward? Is it progressing? Is it evolving? If I get stuck someplace and it's at a high number, I know that I need to go ahead and tap on it. So that's EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique. It's our favorite. Remember also that we learned the Castaneda maneuver, and that is when you have an emotion and it's overwhelming, but you can't necessarily get to a place where you can tap. Maybe it's a big deal and you need a spotter. Oh, excuse me. Excuse me again. Excuse me some more. Or maybe it's just an instantaneous thing. You take hold of the negative emotion, you focus on it, make it big and strong, you point all the way to the left, big deep breath, and you blow out hard as you turn your head all the way to the right, as far as you can go, left to right, and you will feel a huge release. Castaneda maneuver is a temporary fix. It only gets you out of a moment of crisis. It does not replace tapping, okay? It's really important. I know a lot of people have had enormous relief from it, and it's fantastic, but shit's gonna come back up, okay? So make sure to take notes, keep track of it, find your spotter, go from there, okay? So, and then last week, we talked about forgiveness, and how forgiveness is this complex, weird, quirky-ass little thing that is not well defined in our culture, but is very highly regarded and very important. The most important part is that, one, it follows the same process as grieving, okay? So, denial and shock, anger, sadness, bargaining, and finally acceptance. And critical element is that acceptance is not the same thing as approval, okay? Acceptance just means I understand what this piece has taught me in my life, and I don't have to live there anymore. You don't have to stay angry in order to get shit done. You don't have to stay sad to prove that you loved somebody. You don't have to stay, you don't have to figure out how to do things better over and over and over again after something is already passed on. Learn, move on. honey, there's plenty of time to make lots more mistakes, and it's going to be glorious and amazing. Get these in the bag first. Get these mastered. Let's go on and make new ones. Okay? Yeah, I know I'm live. Thanks for letting me know that, YouTube. You're super. All right. So, last week I told you guys to keep track of some dreams. I didn't get anything emailed to me or posted or anything like that, so I don't have anything to really work with. So let's just start with this. All right, let's start with two things. One is people who don't remember their dreams very well, okay? Now the cool thing is you guys have EFT, and that means you can actually program yourself to remember your dreams. EFT is not just for releasing things, it's also for mastering things, and it's for improving performance, and it is for getting the hang of things a little bit better. I've been using it a little bit, trying a couple of different things with ADHD, and I think I have a good protocol that I'm going to start using on the boys. I don't know if it's going to work, because ADHD is not very well understood. There are some protocols, but they're not oh, I guess she's there. But they're not well documented. And of course, you know me, I love my documentation. It's my favorite. Yeah, very cool. Wasn't remembering anything, so anything to help. All right, so here's what you want to do, okay? Focus on, in order to kind of get a toehold on something to tap on for the dreams. You know, visualize a picture representative in your head of accidental alchemy. That was the other thing that we were going to be talking about. Hopefully we'll these are pretty quick topics, so hopefully we can get to all of them. So think about the frustration that you feel, or waking up in the morning with a blank mind. And what you want to say is, even though I have a hard time remembering my dreams, or I don't remember my dreams, I remember my dreams. Even though I have a hard time remembering dreams, even though I don't remember my dreams, I remember my dreams. Even though, because remember, it's a replacement thing, okay? And even though, and you don't have to immediately buy in and feel the I love myself completely and totally. Our intention of it makes it true. And that's kind of the amazing thing about it, all right? So even though I don't remember my dreams, I remember my dreams. Even though I don't remember my dreams, I remember my dreams. I remember my dreams. I really have a hard time remembering my dreams. You know, I wake up all the time and I don't remember my dreams, and you know, I get really frustrated. I really feel like I'm missing something. I don't remember my dreams. Big deep breath, and try it a few times. And right before you go to sleep, remind yourself, hey, you know what? I remember my dreams. Totally remember my dreams. Now, a very important thing to do, remember that you guys all have journals. You will start getting dreams. Keep track of them, okay? Write them down, even if it's just a brief little thing. I've gotten to the point where I sort of programmed myself to only remember the ones that were really important or really cool. Some of my dreams have inspired novels, plots and things like that I really think could work well. I had one, the other night I had a dream where I had, like, in the dream, I had the knowledge that this event had happened. That there had been like a round table called with all the adults in our big extended family. And we negotiated for everybody to have like one big thing, one big thing. And we would all like contribute money to that one big thing. But everything else, because, oh, well, I want to get this for this and this for this and this for this person and this person and this person. Everything else was going to be handmade. Everything else is handmade. I thought that was really cool. So I'm like, hey, I got to remember this. And, training the kids to keep boxes of things. It's like, oh, well, I found this cool thing at a flea market. Well, that's cool. I actually technically kind of count that as being in the handmade thing. It's small. It's not going out and spending hundreds of dollars on something last minute and being very materialistic. It's, wow, this is a really, really cool thing. Like, Tristan found Craig a working electronic Dungeons and Dragons game from like 1980 something? Yeah, 1980s. Still working, all the pieces. That's freaking cool. All right, so that's the key to remembering your dreams. Let's talk about dream symbolism. You can take the vast majority of the dream dictionaries that exist in the world and burn them, or throw them out the window, or otherwise dispose of them. So there's lots of reasons why dreams stop becoming so vivid, and this is what I'm going to dive into a little bit more here. Okay, so when we remember our dreams, when they're vivid, when they're visceral, when they're real, it means that there's a lot of stuff in our subconscious going on. What are dreams really? Dreams are our subconscious, our shadowlands, communicating with our conscious mind through the language of what the conscious neocortical mind has provided. Okay, so your brain actually can't make up faces. Your faces are always going to be somebody that you've seen. Now, they may be modified, they may be changed, but there's always going to be a basis for the people that you see in your dreams. The events that occur are communications, but they're not necessarily important ones, okay? I cannot stress that enough. When we talk about the significance of dreams, we're talking about sometimes your brain just has to take out the trash and work out bullshit. Sometimes your brain is really trying to tell you something. Pay attention to how you feel in the dream versus how you feel when you wake up, okay? So there's two sides to this, all right? What drives me up the wall when people start trying to describe their dreams and tell me about, it's like, and I don't really know why this was, because it was a dream, honey. Okay? Because it was a dream. It's okay. Dreams aren't supposed to make sense. It's weird, right? But in a way, they always do. Now, just like Reiki develops a language, dreams have their language with you. And it is the reason that dream dictionaries can all be thrown out the goddamn window is that unless you study them and you adopt them and you believe them, it doesn't, they might only apply a fraction of the time, okay? There is such a thing as a cultural shared consciousness. And Carl Jung got into this a great deal. He was working on the cosmic unconsciousness and everything like that, and how we do share a common paradigm, and that's part of what defines sort of our consensus and yet subjective reality. But our dream language is almost exclusively based in our personal mythology. Okay, so I know for me, If I'm expecting someone to die, grandfather, a friend in trouble, something like that, I may not consciously recognize, hey, this person is sick, or hey, this is going on. But my dream, we take in all of our information, whether we realize it or not, whether we consciously process it or not. And our brain goes, oh, hey, you know what? All these pieces kind of go together. I bet this is going to happen. And so for me, whenever I've seen a shovel in a dream, sitting in a corner, or somebody carrying it, or just something, I notice a shovel. Somebody's going to die. Usually within the next week or so. And it's never been wrong. But I also stay in touch with people, and I build relationships with people, and I can listen on a whole different level. And that's a big part of where precognitive dreams come in. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't an extra level to it, because I have freaked some people out with some shit that I should not possibly fucking know. But whatever. I just see stories in my head and they make sense. And I think it has a lot to do with the fact that I've done so much studying in archetypal realities, cosmic unconsciousness, patterns of relationships, psychology, all of it, all put together. Who the fuck knows? But pay attention to some of the symbols that come up in your dreams and correlate them. Correlation is not causation. Write it down again. Correlation is not causation. You may recognize things, and you may acknowledge things, and you may put the pieces together. But having a dream doesn't make a thing happen. It just means that you've recognized the patterns that are going to lead to this event, probably, okay? And your subconscious gave you that message by letting you see this scene. Deja vu. So there's two types of deja vu. And we cannot definitively say for certain which is which. Like, I have deja vu, and I remember when I had a dream about something. Except, here's the thing about deja vu. Deja vu is a chemical reaction in your brain that mimics remembrance. And the brain is so wily and weird that it will make up reasons to justify an aberrant feeling rather than face extreme cognitive dissonance. So maybe me remembering when I had this dream was really just me sort of backfilling information because my brain went, oh yeah, by the way, here, have a flood of hormones. Could be. You never know. So keep track of your dream symbolisms. Keep track of the things that happen. And even if it's like, wow, what's that giraffe doing there? I get bursts of vivid dreams for a week or two, and then usually a dry spell where it's hard to remember dreams at all. Deja vu still happens occasionally. Welcome to your funky brain chemicals, sunshine. Now, that's not to say that deja vu isn't important, I guess. Because what I've noticed is that when I do get a case of deja vu, I am consciously looking at and paying attention to what's going on around me. Like, does this happen next? Huh. Now, there have been a few times when I've been able to call what happens next. Like, oh yeah, and then this is going to happen. And it does. Now, is that just me recognizing patterns? Is it my brain backfilling information? Who the fuck knows? But it's kind of fun. Just pay attention to it. Keep notes. That's what your notebook is for, your journal. All right. So, understanding and recognizing your dreams symbolism is about learning and exploring your own personal mythology. From this topic, let me get into divination some, okay? Now, as I said, I have the uncanny capacity to just call it Right? Ditto. Deja vu happens years after the initial dream. But see, the thing is, do you really remember the dream? Or is your brain chemical tricking you into thinking that you remember a dream by backfilling information? That there's no way to definitively answer that, because there's no way for us to record those dreams. When I get deja vu, I usually do something or weird from the memory. But why? I mean, why are you going to change it? Why are you going to mess with that? Are you afraid? Are you afraid something bad's going to happen? Are you afraid that deja vu is like a warning? This is not a challenge. This is a explore your feeling and kind of figure out why. And these are things to keep note of. Excuse me. So, let it ride sometimes. You never know. Brains are weird. Okay, so let's talk about divination for a minute. As Sarah can tell you, with her friend who came over a few years ago. So your fiance is already probably talking to other. Never met the guy before in my life. I think I'd met her friend like once. So this is what's going to happen here, and this is what's going to happen here, and this is what's going to happen here, and this is all personal stuff, so I'm not sharing it. But you know, it was definitely, you know, once I get permission, then I'll tell you the whole story. But the long and short of it was that she had to move back to town, and the boyfriend is still up north, and he ended up kind of being a shitheel, beginning to end, and everything that I said was going to happen about him flirting and trying to fuck around on her and being manipulative and shitty and all, yep, bang, 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 bang. Never met the guy before. I've never met him at all, actually. And then, oh yeah, and then this is going to happen, and this is going to happen, and this is going to happen here, and here's how this is going to go, and this and da-da-da. And how do I know that? Look, man, I don't know. I just think I'm really good at recognizing patterns. But I also use, and everybody knows this, I also use tarot. Some people call it tarot, some people call it tarot. Those people are wrong because it's French. I've always said tarot, and I have, you know, multiple decks. Just, you know, fun to have. I use the Osho Zen deck probably the most because, one, it doesn't use reversals, because reversals are just a pain in the ass. And so let's talk about a couple of things about divination and tarot and things like that. First of all, what are we actually reading when we look at tarot? Well, we are looking at a snapshot of symbols that our brain, our subconscious, puts together in a story to help us understand our situation better. Okay? In all likelihood, this is what will happen. All right, so let's take a great example. Let's say you're doing a relationship reading, okay? Somebody's doing a relationship reading for you, because rule number 1 of doing divination, never do it for yourself. Rule number 1 of divination, never do it for yourself. And the reason you never do it for yourself is that you are only reading your fears. You are not reading accurately. You're going to read in more than if somebody else lays it out for you. It's the whole accountability thing, okay? So somebody lays out a relationship reading, and the last card is the Ten of Swords, okay? Now the Ten of Swords in traditional decks has a guy laying on the ground with 10 swords stuck in it. He's bleeding out and he's dead, and yep, that's the end of that. He did. Now, if you are looking to get out of your relationship, if you are unhappy and you want out, that's going to be a hardcore yes. GTFO. However, the whole point of getting a reading and getting that sounding chessboard was for you to find a way to stay in the relationship, then you're going to see that Ten of Swords as a, all right, I got to close the chapter on this. I need to change my tactic. I need to stop approaching it from this perspective. Maybe I'm the one that's being aggressive. Maybe this is what needs to be addressed. But obviously something has to change. We have to close this chapter, put the past behind us, start something new, and move forward. Same card, but it can be taken two different ways depending entirely on what your true desire is. Now, people get tarot readings and things like that because they might or might not know what their true desire is. But it's kind of like the coin flip thing. It's a little more complicated, obviously, than the coin flip thing. The coin flip thing is, if you use a coin to, flip a coin in the air to try to make a decision, before the coin lands, you actually know which of the two choices you want. And it doesn't matter if it's heads or tails. You already know what you want. Now, some people are like hyper honest to their result, and even if it's not what they really want, they still go and do whatever the coin says. But it helps you define your choices. It helps you define your desires much more effectively by putting pressure on it. Here's you have to make a decision. Do it right now. The same is actually true for just about any form of divination. Runes, Chinese sticks, bibliomancy, not necromancy, that's a whole other thing. We're not going to get into that. Remember, raising a family is really, really hard unless they're buried very close together. I could probably do an entire class just on tarot and divination. And I might do that at some point, but I have to see that you guys are actually interested and I have an audience before I put that much effort into it, because it's kind of a lot. Ooh, but I will tell you, how cool is my husband? We got another 3D printer, which means I may actually have tarot tiles available sometime very soon. So excited. Okay. Back on topic. So that's my short version of divination. Divination and dreams go together very, very closely because your personal mythology and your desire and your subconscious are all going to work together to give you the answers that you need through any of those formats. Okay? And a lot of people do use their dreams as divination. Now, okay. Let me define this term very specifically. When I talk about divination, I am talking about getting down to your subconscious, to your heart's heart, past your neocortical, ego-based consciousness, to understand who and what you are on the inside, what your true desires are, what your true passions are, everything like that. What your current state is most likely to result in. Okay? So, oh, excuse me. Excuse me some more. Excuse me again. That is what comes out. Now, you can meditate before bed. And there's I guess I should probably show you guys a couple of techniques. So I showed you guys the, I think it's a 478 or 487. Breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 7 seconds, and then breathe out for 8 seconds, or 8 and 7. I'm sure it doesn't really matter, either way. As long as it's 1 second longer, either way. Do that about 3 or 4 or 5 times, and you get lightheaded. It adjusts the oxygen level in your brain, and it's very, very easy, 1, to go to sleep, and 2, to get into a deep meditative state. Another thing to do is there are some pressure points right here, okay? So you have, right there, the middle of your forehead, and then the two pressure points that we use when we're right here on either side, okay, when we're doing EFT, right there. So press those. And then cup the back of your head right here, your hand, right here under your occipital. And it does this weird, weird, weird thing and immediately drops you into like this whooshy meditative state. Do not do it for longer than about 10, 20 seconds or you will fall. And don't do it standing up. I did that when I was teaching a class, and it wasn't good. It was not okay. Excuse me. Meditate before bed and ask your dream self to bring you answers. And there's lots of different meditations that you can use for this one. I feel like I am missing something about a situation. Could be a work thing, could be a problem I'm trying to solve online, could be a story plot, could be a life thing, who the fuck knows. When I feel like I'm missing something, I go through this meditation where I visualize walking down a path and having the hermit light my way, which is one of the archetypes from the Tarot. And I walk into a temple, and I walk up to a book, and there's a black candle and a white candle. Those are represented usually on the High Priestess card, which is inner knowledge. And a light, moonlight, shining down on a big book on an altar or on a podium. And I try to time it so that I'm reaching the book right as I'm drifting into sleep. Okay, so this is one of those meditations that you do specifically as you're going to sleep. And most of the time, when you get to that point, the message is, all right, I need a message. Okay, it's been delivered. You wake up the next morning, especially if you've done the preliminary work to remember your dreams, you should have a memory of something. Write it down, analyze it, figure it out. If at any point in time you have a really hard time figuring out just what the hell is this giraffe who thinks he's a Jersey cow, I don't get that symbolism, or whatever, just message me. We'll figure. I'll take a look at it. And, I got resources. We'll figure it out. I usually know most of you guys pretty well that I can go, yeah, here's where that's coming from. Because it's, your personal mythology is built from movies that you've watched, and books that you've read, and music that you listen to, and people you've been around, and churches you grew up in, and people you met once, and people you spent years with, and just different beliefs about how the world works. All of these things go together to build your personal mythology. Understanding that and having a strong foundation in how your personal mythology has been put together is really the most important thing that you can have in interpreting your own dreams. Right. Does anybody have any questions about that so far? Hey, baby. My love. Did you say hold on? When the alarm goes off, when the timer goes off, use the thermometers on both sides to make sure it's about 145. Oh shit, I'm sorry. All right. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. So I'm seeing no questions so far. That's just fine. Establishing lucidity. Okay. There's a cheat. And that is EFT, of course. the trick is to have a strong understanding of what lucidity is and what lucid dreaming is. Because what you're going to say is, even though I have a hard time maintaining my dream state, I enjoy lucidity in my dreams. I have lucidity in my dreams. I lucid dream. I dream lucidly. However you want to put it. But you have to have a strong understanding of what lucidity means for you in order for that to be effective. And that's where that whole mindful linguistics thing comes in. Understand the words that you're using. Did I tell you guys about the word interesting? Yeah. So I love interesting things. Interesting things are amazing. I broke up with a guy over the word interesting. Because he wasn't using it the way I used it or intended. And it was not a compliment. I mean, maybe he might have meant it as a compliment, but it was not. It should not have been used in that context. But it's the word interesting. I mean, how rough can it be? Yeah. So, that's the cheat. Besides that, it's just about persistence. It's just about maintaining the state, consciously allowing yourself to recognize that you are dreaming, and also giving yourself permission to explore the dream and to be in the dream. Sometimes it is important to be in the dream and to have the full dream state, because you are not 100% yourself. You're exploring an alternate option, an alternate reality in whatever way. Okay? Most of the time, you're going to get what you need out of it. And if you can't, a little meditation, a little bit walking back, because I've heard a lot of people complain about the way these things work. When you are meditating, especially on something like this, where you want to have recall. I lost the word for a minute, sorry. When you want to recall something from your dreams, when you want to recall something from a daydream or from a moment or from a whatever, and you're walking back through your head, you're not going to get the memory while you're sitting in meditation. Don't sit there and call it a failure and totally unplayable because you were meditating and you didn't remember it. All you're doing is setting up the wheels in the right motion in order to remember later, and it will come back to you. And it's okay. Okay? That's just how it works. Now, enough of all that, because I do want to talk about, well, I don't know. I'm actually going to leave it up to you guys. Does anybody want to talk about toxic relationships? Well, that was deeply convincing there, man. All right. So, well, I was going to talk about grief and forgiveness, but I also wanted to talk about relationships and toxic relationships. And I actually think that toxic relationships is probably more important for us to talk about, relationships in general, because this is a healing class. And everybody in this class is learning to heal themselves and is also learning to apply these things to other people. And that means that it's very, very easy to end up in a situation where you have um, toxic people, clinging to you. You have to give yourself permission to deal with that. Exactly. So this is really more on the tail end of the forgiveness thing. All right. So what defines a toxic relationship? All right. A toxic relationship is one where you are either one, putting more into it than you get out emotionally, physically, financially, whatever, and you feel a deficit. Okay? So if you're used to just taking care of somebody who can't give anything back, okay? Daniel, for instance, okay? He's 11 years old and he's in diapers. But that's not going to change. He's nonverbal, he can't read, he can't write, he doesn't communicate actively, he doesn't initiate conversations. We put a lot into that relationship. We're not getting anything back in kind. That's okay. We don't feel depleted by that. That's our commitment as his family, as his mom, his dad, his brothers and sisters. That's not a toxic relationship. Similar situation though. There was, I had an aunt, a great aunt. I mean, she was okay, but who was infirm, and she was in bed, and my dad, I think, because my mom wouldn't after a while, did her grocery shopping every week because she couldn't leave the house. She just couldn't. She had nurses 2 or 3 times a week. She went through nurses like some people went through underwear. It was insane because she was just a horrible goddamn person. She was just awful. And so here's my dad taking time out every Sunday, doing her grocery shopping, and I mean, and she was well off. It's not like, meth park trailer trash or anything like that. It's like high-rise condominiums, and she was well to do. She could have hired a service, but she insisted on having my dad or my mom do it anyway. Mostly so that she could be just an abusive shit. Maybe she did hire people and they just told her to fuck off, which could totally be a thing. She was just horrible. Like, she would emasculate my dad and question his manhood and, jab at him for not supporting his family sufficiently and, just all sorts of horrible, awful things. And it was a very toxic relationship. Every single time he came back from there, he was angry, pissed off, very frequently took it out on us. But he also didn't have sufficient emotional training to know, oh, I probably shouldn't be doing that. Or to be conscious enough to recognize that he was doing it. A lot of toxic relationships are nowhere near that obvious. So, what's a healthy relationship? Let's start from there. A healthy relationship is a person who supports you in what you want to do. They may not agree with you, but they'll support you. Hey, I don't think this is a great idea. I don't really think you're cut out to be a Spanish bullfighter. You don't speak Spanish very well, and you're kind of a wimp around bulls. But hey, if that's what you want to do, let me cheer you on. It'll drive you to practice and stuff. And then doesn't say shit when you have to drop out of Spanish bullfighting class because you suck. Um, support is not, yay, do the thing. I mean, it is, don't get me wrong, it absolutely is. But true support is, what can I do to help? What can I do to help you? And legitimately stepping up and doing that. Every single person who knows me knows, if I say, hey, what can I do to help? It means that I already have a bunch of stuff over here ready to execute. You know, when a friend of ours, his dad's girlfriend was killed in a motorcycle accident. Like, completely unexpected, totally out of the blue. I was at the grocery store, I'm buying pasta, I'm buying all sorts of stuff because I know the guy isn't gonna, you know, he's not gonna be able to function and take care of himself. He just, I mean, lost his girlfriend horribly. So I made food. And that's what you do, you know, you make food. But we didn't just make food. We went there and we showed up and we took care of people. We drove people to and from the funeral home and gravesite and all this. We did all the things because we said, what can we do to help? And we meant it. So that's the other thing, is somebody who says, can I help, and means it. Now, does that mean that somebody who doesn't offer to help is a shitty friend? Depends on the situation, okay? I don't want somebody who's terrified of children and poop offering to watch my kids, because it's not going to go well. Please do not offer that, because I'll believe you. A healthy relationship, supportive relationship, unconditional. I'll only be your friend if you buy me lunch. I'll only love you if you don't hit me. I mean, it seems like a really low bar, but it's the low bar of somebody who's been abused. I've seen so many shitty relationships or things where people are basically, usually women, are emotionally starving and, you know, completely destitute on any sort of energetic or empathic level. But at least he doesn't hit me. That, you're right, that is a very least, but there can be more to it than that. Come on, guys. Shit. Actively involved, present. And that's for relationships like, you know, friendships, romantic relationships, and family relationships. All right. Let's talk about blood is thicker than water. Because really, when we talk about toxic relationships, we absolutely can apply it to all kinds of friends and romances and things like that. But really, the core definition almost always comes back to comparing to family. All right, blood is thicker than water is not what it actually means. It's not the actual phrase. So blood is thicker than water is a horrible translation from a Hebrew phrase that was founded, which is the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb, which was actually based in a nomadic Arabic Bedouin phrase, which is the blood of the tribe is thicker than the milk of the brother, or something along those lines. I can't remember the exact one. But basically, milk brothers or tribesmen who stand next to you and defend you and fight for you and things like that, those are the people that you can actually trust, as opposed to somebody who just you happen to be born next to, or born to, or born from. There is no magical property that says that the people that you are blood related to are automatically going to be your best friends in the whole wide world. Not your brothers, not your sisters, not your parents, not your children. Definitely not grandparents, aunties, uncles, cousins, etc. Nieces, nephews. There's no magical property. All relationships require effort. They require work. But usually the people who say blood is thicker than water, are the ones that don't quite put it together and aren't really thinking about the phrase. They're just trying to say, oh, but it's your family. You gotta give them a pass. No, honey, you don't. A lot of times we grow up and we go back and we look at our childhoods, and we recognize the further that we get away from it in years and time, the more we see the cracks. We see things weren't exactly perfect. We see things weren't exactly idyllic. A lot of us idealize our childhoods while we're in them, and that's fine. You know, that's I think a lot of times something that we have to do to sort of cope with relationships that might not be ideal. I had to work on the car today, and the soap that I used to get all the car grease off really makes my skin itchy. It's been bothering me, distracting me. Okay. A lot of times we look back. I did not realize consciously that some really bad shit had happened when I was a kid, and I was treated in some very poor, unparent-like ways until I was pregnant with Daniel. I had Daniel when I was 34, 33, 34, somewhere in there. Yeah. That's a long time to entertain relationships that frankly aren't very healthy. And as I looked back, I recognized that the specifics of how the relationship was unhealthy as a child had reflected into my relationship as an adult with the person. And actually really both of them to a degree, but in different ways. How do you handle that? When you realize that somebody has violated your trust, when you realize that somebody has made a grievous, horrible, heinous mistake, and we always assume first that it's a mistake. Even if it's a pattern of behavior, some people don't understand behaviors are shitty. I know it sounds weird, but remember that there is an entire generation holding on, well, a good portion of an entire generation holding on to the nail to life, who actually believe that them colored folk need to be in their own restaurants and need to not sit next to the white folks. And them good old boys down south are just defending their heritage. That, you know, if those young men down there in Ferguson had just, you know, followed the law, they wouldn't have gotten shot. Yeah, those people. And it is a cultural anomaly. But people learn. People can learn. People can overcome. We love that. We love to see people doing that. It's kind of a big deal. All right. So, I confronted the person about what I had come to realize, what I had come to terms with. Actually, through a series of dreams. And they responded by getting defensive and shitty. And I said, well, If you're not willing to acknowledge and accept what you did and work forward and, you know, admit that it was a mistake, then it is your true desire to partake in this behavior. And if you touch another child ever, I will end you messily. And there's no doubt in their mind or mine that will happen should events come to pass. I'm pretty sure I get acquitted. But confront them, give them the opportunity to make up for the mistake. If they're still going to cling to a toxic behavior, to a dangerous behavior, to a negative behavior, GTFO, there's no obligation for you to stay. And it doesn't have to be anything as extreme as what I went through. In fact, the same person had a systematic and continues to have a systematic pattern of behavior, which is just generally denigrating and demeaning, making a lot of lascivious and lewd comments that are completely not appropriate to anybody. Yeah, no, and gets called out on it and continues to partake in the behavior. Bye. So you confront the person. And this ties in very, very heavily to the whole forgiveness track, okay? Confront the person. Are they going to change their behavior? Yes, no, maybe. Yes, okay. I support you in that. Set the foundation, set the stage for a healthy behavior, for a healthy relationship by saying, even though this bad thing happened, I support your desire to be better in the future. So let's go and see what that looks like. What can I do to help? And mean it. You know, don't be that guy. If it's just too much, it's okay. It's okay for it to be too much for you. And for you to say, nope, I'm done. Bye. I can't look at you without wanting to punch you in the face or cry or curl up in the fetal position or whatever. Can't do it. Bye. Deal with your own forgiveness track, because forgiveness has nothing to do with them. And we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Was it last week? I think it was last week. Forgiveness has zero to do with the other person, okay? It has everything to do with you. You are the person who needs to go through the forgiveness process, not because you need to allow them to continue their bullshit behavior, but because you have to, one, not carry around the damage. Don't bleed all over everything, literally or figuratively. Don't hold yourself in that moment. Excuse me. Don't hold yourself in that moment where you're hurt. Move forward, because remember, hurt people hurt people. And that's one of the reasons why we want to be forgiving and we want to not carry things forward, is that we don't want to be the hurt person that hurts people. Okay? And when people are hurting and they make mistakes, give them the room to come back from it. And if they're not ready to do that, that's fine. That's not your job to make them that way. It's their job to decide. And you get to decide if they get to stay in your life or not. Now, does it matter if that person's your mother? No. Matter if you're your father, brothers and sisters? Nope. Now, this does get complicated and weird if you are underage. If you are under 18 and you are not capable of legally living on your own, that sucks, and I'm sorry. There are ways around it, almost always. Please don't run away from home. There are resources, there are people that you can call, and you know, if you're seeing this at some future date, today's actually April 2nd, 2019. Happy birthday, Miles! Mwah! My boy is 21 today! He's not even my oldest. He's like my fourth oldest. Yeah, he's the last of the first batch. if you're seeing this sometime in the future, you know, you can message me through this channel and I will get the message and I will help you find resources. This happens a lot for kids who haven't come to terms with their gender or their sexuality in ways that their parents would prefer them to. It's life. Sorry, guys. A friend of mine gave me a call earlier today, and he had a pretty rough go of it himself as a kid. And there's a wisdom that we kind of use when we are dealing with defining the toxicity of our parents, and that is that there's a mythology, there's a belief that says that you choose your parents before you're born. And every single time that we have to bring this up, every single person looks back at themselves and says, what the fuck was I thinking? Oh my God! Well, and sometimes not, but most people who aren't, you know, they're in therapy for different reasons, and we don't have to talk about, you know, picking your parents. But why? I mean, why would we have done that? Why would we have done that to ourselves? And it's not, you know, going be self-deprecating or anything, but really put yourself in a position of assuming this to be true, so that you can explore the thought process and the thought experiment of, why would I have chosen this? Why would I have chosen to be born to these parents in this birth order with this circumstance of early life? What possible lesson could I have been setting myself up for? Oh, excuse me, sorry. That is the right question. Is it factually or spiritually or figuratively or literally? Who the fuck knows? Who gives a shit? The question is to assume it for the sake of thought experimentation and saying, okay, if this was the case, if I chose these people, what the fuck was I thinking? Well, I'm a hell of a lot stronger for it now. I can take a punch like nobody's business. And I have a very, very high level of sensitivity. I can detect people who are skeevy in that way, like that. It's almost like a superpower. And I also have a very, very high level of empathy and awareness for people who have been through similar events. So, you know, we're drawn together, and through that, because I didn't have, being a single mom in the places where I was, which was all over everywhere, I didn't have things like, you know, health insurance. So a lot of the times when I was going through, you know, the deepest, darkest parts of my self-discovery, I didn't have access to therapy, traditional therapy. I didn't have access to medication. I didn't have access to, you know, a whole lot of options that most people normally would. I mean, we say, oh, well, you know, go see a therapist and go see, and that's one of the reasons why I practice the way I do. You know, I like food. I do like to get paid, but I'll work on a sliding scale because I know that people can't afford and don't want to afford years sometimes of slogging through bullshit. No, here, let me show you how to get through this really fast. I'll spot you this couple of times. Here's your program. About your uncle, there you go. And it works great. It works beautifully. But I discovered this whole process because I couldn't get to where I couldn't get here. I did not have access. Because I did not have access, I had to find another way through. Okay? I forgot where I started with that. Sorry. It's been a really long day. It's been a really long day, and dinner smells amazing, so I may have to jump off here in just a few. But if you're on the Patreon, you probably already have access to Blood is Thicker Than Water. I think the actual article is called Blood, Water, Poison, and it's a full dissertation of breaking down, here's where the phrase came from, here's what the cultural significance of it, etc., going all the way down. What I want you guys to really come away from this with, and forgive me if I got a little disjointed and a little weird, because I can't talk about a lot of specifics, and it always throws me for a little bit of a loop for a minute. And I hope I got all the right words in so that you guys can track with me. The most important thing I want you guys to come away from this with is that as healers, as people who have compassion for others, you are naturally going to be drawn to situations that are going to test your ever-loving goddamn last motherfucking nerve. I hear at least one person going, yeah, no shit. Love you, Sarah. You're drawn to these people, and they're drawn to you. And your job is to make sure that the relationship doesn't turn toxic. And a lot of times, the only way it's not going to be toxic is if you don't let it be. Now, if somebody is determined to be an abusive ass, GTFO. It does get complicated, of course, when it's with a work relation, or when it's your boss, or your manager, or even a coworker. I have gotten fired for calling out shitty behavior of coworkers. They just like them more, I guess. That's not what happened, but we're going to go with that for now. It was a religion thing. Defend yourself. Use your Reiki to create a bubble to keep them from feeding off of your energy. Use EFT to release your anger and your frustration and your irritation, because all that stuff is just getting in the way of you finding a solution and finding a way through. This goes also with people, not just work relations, but people that you know in real life. Use the Castaneda. Yeah, that's the right name. Use the Castaneda maneuver. Okay? If somebody's pissing you off, if you really want to be shitty, don't use a breath mint first. I'm not advocating being shitty. Exactly. And then assess where it is. If they're just being an ass, if they're just being shitty, if they're just being mean, defend yourself. Compassionately, firmly, draw your line. And that's where it is. When it comes to toxic relationships, especially one that you can't actually easily leave, a lot of people say, well, it's time to start thinking about compromise. We've had this discussion before. I'm going to touch on it again. Fuck compromise. Compromise means I give something up and you give something up, and maybe somewhere in the middle we'll both get something we kind of want, but it's not really what we want. Negotiation is saying, this is what I want, this is what you want. Assuming that both are healthy, let's figure out a way to make them both happen. How do we do that? That's our foundation. Compromise starts with giving something up. Negotiation starts with, this is what I want. Okay? Sometimes the other party wants something that is unhealthy, that isn't true, that isn't possible even. And then you got to say, well, sorry, we're not negotiating then. This is what I want. This is how this would benefit you. Do you want some of this? Because cookies, man, it's kind of cool. No? All right, bye. Defending your boundaries, being willing to tell people no. Oh my gosh, that's a big deal. Being willing to tell people, sorry, not today. Being willing to cut somebody off. I haven't talked to either of my parents in quite some time. I'm not planning on it. I haven't talked to one of my sisters in quite some time. I'm not planning on it. Now, said sister decided at one point that she had reflected on some of the behaviors that I flooded. I mean, it's not like I just cut her off and said, that's it, you know, ghosted her or anything like that. It's like, I am upset about this. These are the things that I'm upset about. If she wanted to address that and go through it and maybe try to give me a good reason for her behavior, maybe apologize for what was obviously not correct behavior. Yeah, that's not a big deal. Let's move on. Let's go from there. It's never going to happen. But if it did, I'm open to it. That's fine. I'm not going to carry around the anger part of it. And that really is the crux of why forgiveness is important. It does not mean somebody gets to waltz back in and do the same bullshit all over again. What it means is you're not carrying around their bullshit, and you have more emotional resource to make a good decision. Periodically, people come stay with me, sometimes for extended periods of time. Once in a blue moon, actually less frequently than that, somebody leaves my house on bad terms. You guys have all heard about the time that I had to kick that one roommate out and stole his girlfriend? Yeah, kind of like that. Not in any sort of a creepy way. It's just that, you know, she was helping out with the house and the kids and stuff like that, and he wasn't. Bye. I gave him ample opportunity, talked to him about it before everything happened, gave him plenty of chances. And then that was it. No more chances. Chances ran out. Fresh out. Sorry. And probably about 6 months, a year later, something like that, he actually popped back up and apologized and said, I was young, I was stupid, and I'm really sorry. You know, this is just, you know, I recognize that you tried to give me an opportunity and I fucked it up, and sorry, man. And I said, because I'd already worked through my forgiveness stuff, like, that's cool. You can't move back in with me, but, you know, that's cool. That's fine. You know, we can be friends. That's great. But I also didn't let him, you know, take part in bullshit. And when I saw him posting, like, you know, crap online, I called him out on it, you know, like you do. I was not more sensitive to his bullshit than other people's. He just gets to be a person. And ultimately, when you forgive somebody, and this is the other side of it that I think I forgot to get into last week. When somebody has hurt you very badly, and you have to work through forgiveness, and you have to work hard at getting through forgiveness. The goal is never for things to go back to the way they were before. Because the way things were before is when they hurt you. The circumstances of that arrangement, of that situation, allowed you to be hurt. And whether it seemed like it was an anomalous one-off or not, neither here nor there. But the fact is, you can't go back to that moment, because that was the moment before you were hurt. And in being hurt, you became stronger. You learned something. You learned something vital about yourself. That's what the whole acceptance phase is. We're working towards that so we can say, this is what I learned. Don't let this bitch borrow $50. You're never going to see it again. If you give this son of a bitch money, he's going to go get high, and not in a happy, fun way. You know, any number of things. There can be all kinds of examples. For one person in our audience, let me just say, drama whores are basically psychic emotional vampires. All they want is your attention, and they are going to play you like a fucking violin to get it. It's bullshit. If they want to be dramatic and they want to go out, okay, fine, let them. And it sounds horrible. There's two things that you have got to understand, two things that are so fucking important. particularly because you are healers. One, pain is not the enemy. That doesn't mean let yourselves get hurt. It means salving, S-A-L-V-I-N-G, salving your pain is not the purpose. Pain is a signpost. Pain is always a symptom. Distress is a symptom. It is not the problem. The problem is not that you're distressed. The problem is that this bitch is taking advantage of you and is being rude and is being abusive and is undermining your ability to get shit done and is stealing your clothes and your money and your whatever. That's the problem. Your distress is not the problem. The problem is the problem. Fix the problem. You can't fix the problem if you're distressed. So we tap, tap, tap on the distress part so that we can focus on the problem, because that gives our emotional resources back so that we can figure out what to do about this. Okay? Second thing is, death is not the enemy. Yes, I have lost people to suicide. Yes, I have lost people to murder. I've lost people to overdoses. I've lost people to cancer. I've lost people to heart attacks. I've lost people to car accidents, congenital defects. Oh, nope, that was a suicide. Accidental death. Nope, that was a murder. Yeah, I can go on. And every last one of those people got exactly the same thing. They got one lifetime. It's their choice how they spend it. It's their choice how they end it. That's the way it's supposed to be. Animals actually have more right to dignified death than humans do, and I have issues about that. But neither here nor there. When somebody is threatening suicide, because I know somebody in our audience right now has had this problem, it's an emotional manipulation. Give them the suicide hotline number, tell them to talk to somebody, anything like that, but you don't get to get yourself in a tizzy over it, because that's just feeding into the cycle. They're hitting your button and they're getting emotional cookies out. And they're hitting your button and they're getting emotional cookies out. And when you try to stop giving them emotional cookies, they just hit the button harder. Dick punch. Seriously. It's a difficult cycle to break, and a lot of times those people you just have to cut loose from your life. And if they cut loose the rest of the way, but you still tried to play into it, sunshine, it still upset you. And maybe that was a little bit of your dharma. It's okay. The fact that you recognize it and the fact that you're stepping back from it, that's the important part. But yeah, that was all bullshit. Straight up. And you know what? Somebody can accidentally die from an accidental suicide as easily as a deliberate one. That sounds weird, but I've actually known people who really didn't intend on going through with it and still ended up pushing up the daisies. I do, however, fucking despise the phrase, cry for help. You don't say. I just want attention. You don't say. What kind of attention does she want? What kind of attention does she need? We as healers have to discern that and decide what kind they need. And then defend their right to accept it. Defend their responsibility to accept it. Okay? So a little bit different there. But Um, so the guidelines are, and I'm as soon as I finish the EFT article, which I know is still coming, but I keep running into more data that I want to share with you guys. It's crazy. Does your relationship feed you? Does it enrich you? And apply this to every relationship that you have. How much do you put in? How much do you get out? Do you feel depleted? How do you react when you feel depleted? Do you feel like you need to back off and recharge? Or do you feel like you need to like put more coins into the relationship jar to get something out? Either one can be healthy depending on what the circumstance is, okay? And that's an important thing to understand. You have to be able to assess that. When I worked as a psychic and I worked as a reader, and sometimes I still do, the biggest question, the most common question, I guess I should say, has always been, tell me about my relationship. Is my relationship healthy? Is my relationship going to go anywhere? Is this going to be what I want it to be? And I don't have to know anything about the other person. I don't even have, 9 times out of 10, I don't even have to lay cards. I do. But just, yeah, tell me what's going on. You know, here's what I see. And you give them, you know, the coin flips. And they tell you everything, and listen between the lines, and they'll tell you if they are approaching the relationship from a healthy perspective. That's what it really boils down to. Now I can go into all kinds of specifics about different types of healthy relationships, different relationship configurations, monogamy, polyamory, open, parallel, kitchen table, queer, bi, tri, whatever. But it really doesn't matter. Every way you slice it, are you depleted or are you enriched by your relationship? What do you get out of it? If you find that there's nothing in here for you, ouch, ouch. I heard him. If you find you're depleted more than you're enriched, you have to assess your dynamic and see if there's something that you need to do to improve that. And that is 10,000 Brazilian times more important when you do act as a healer and you are a healer in your community, because those are the times when people are going to feed on you the most, and you will get depleted. Now, there absolutely are ways around that, you betcha. But for the most part, you have to defend your own boundaries. Reiki helps a lot with that. It does help you feed people who need the extra energy without depleting yourself. Just make sure that you're also getting something back from the relationships that are designed to nurture you. Spouses, for instance. Now then, I was kind of thinking of doing a capstone next week, but really I think we've recapped everything pretty effectively, and I don't feel a compelling need to have a class next week unless you guys really, really, really want one and can specifically request some topics. Because we already did one over based on my previous assessment or previous model. So what do you guys think? Is there anything else that I have not covered that you would like to see in a full, at least hour-long class? Yep, that would be a topic for, like, does this work? Nope, it doesn't work. What is that? No, that isn't a thing. All right, I don't know what any of those is. Okay. Um, yeah, that's actually going to be, that would have to be a whole other class, because there's just a lot to it. Learning how to understand the archetypes and use them in a number of different ways. It's not just, just like with Reiki, I don't teach it as a, oh, here's how to tell fortunes. It's really about exploring archetypal realities and understanding how each of the symbolisms relate back to every aspect of our life. So it's kind of cool. I dig it. But that being the case, I literally just said that's what Tarot is the study of archetypes. Did I not say it like that? Because it's what I intended. All right. So, and I teach Tarot one-on-one too. That's not a big deal. It's pretty fun to do. So yeah, actually, so here is your, yep, I'm going to give you guys your capstone assignment. So, for those of you who are seeking this out for the certificate of completion and everything like that, I want you to, of course I have all of your stuff from the previous weeks. I still need to see dreams, and I want to see some dream analysis. Tell me what you think it means based on your personal mythology. And for your final project, which one do we want you guys to do? For your final project, you are going to choose one of the topics that we have discussed. EFT is fine, Reiki is fine, and APA style, okay, double-spaced, Times New Roman, 12-point font, everything like that, like proper APA style, with citations. Give me 6 to 8 pages on how the therapy of your choice, Reiki, EFT, mindful linguistics, you're gonna have a hard time finding stuff on muscle testing, but any of that, use reliable sources, okay? So scholar.google.com is your best friend. Wikipedia does not count unless they link to another site that's also verifiable. Peer-reviewed, double-blind studies, randomized trials, anything like that. Pick a topic, something, nice and small. Childhood sexual abuse or PTSD or something like that, comparatively speaking. I want at least 6 citations, and I want a description of somebody that you know that you can apply and use this stuff with. Okay, so have a session, work with somebody. If you don't feel comfortable working with them directly and providing EFT to them directly, that is okay. Just go ahead and call me, and we will we'll work out a time for me to help you with that. That's not an issue, okay? But I want you to get your hands dirty. I want you to get into it and really work at it, okay? All right. Well, guys, it's been a wonderful class. I have gotten a great deal out of it. I really, really appreciate it. And I think that's going to be it. When next time we live stream, it'll probably be the fall. And we will, we'll work some stuff out. if we do any more classes like this, you know, you'll see whatever the modifications are. But for right now, you guys have actually given me a lot of material, and I really feel really confident that I'm going to be able to finish up this Well-Heeled manual and get a lot of excellent work done. If you are still on the Facebook page, I am going to continue posting things to the Patreon. And I think that moving forward, all of the next classes are probably going to be through Patreon, because, you know, this is not a zero cost class to provide. I know it seems like it is. It's just live stream. No, it takes a lot of time is put into it, and while I would love to give it away for free, I like food. So, yeah, I know, so spoiled. Thank you so much, guys, and mwah.